You mentioned Chris Walker earlier in the conversation. He talks a lot these days about dark social and dark web. One of the big challenges for marketing leaders is that not all your marketing activity can be quantified. I call it, in some respects, leap of faith marketing because you're doing these things, but all these conversations are happening and you can't measure them. As a marketing leader,
Mhm.
what's your take on dark social and dark web in terms of their impact on the buyer's journey? And how do you communicate that to your leadership team when they come to you and say, Carrie, how's our marketing performing? What are the metrics like? What are the KPIs?
It's interesting because I've been a marketer for, quite a while. And so I call it old school marketing. The first marketing campaigns I ever ran, there was no way to digitally immediately measure how that worked. You would have an ad in the Sunday paper. You might have displays up all over the country back in my Coca-Cola days. And so it's a little bit of that. It forces you to really think through that customer journey and really think about the experience that providing and have trust in what you're doing. If you put the customer front and center, you really understand that you have to put it out there. What's the beauty of it now is you can do that old school marketing, but you still have the when people come to you, then you can pull them into the traditional digital channels, which are easier to measure. Right now, it's a conversation that I'm having obviously with the CEO and CFO and the leadership team around cost of acquisition being an aggregate thing to think about, being long-term value being an aggregate thing to think about versus measuring each individual channel or email chain we should be looking at that absolutely, but how do we look at it holistically? And the idea of the rising tide floats all boats, right? So we actually have seen this with some of our new PR efforts that we've been putting in place when we get these, even our Series C funding, which was picked up. We saw an increase in traffic. We saw an increase in folks signing up. And so when you have those little signals as a marketer, you amplify those internally as much as you can to say, see, you kind of do this baseline, what might you expect from this? And then if it's running at the same time, how much incremental did you get over that? It's art and science. It's actually a really fun part of marketing, especially as like I have a lot of brand strategy, brand positioning background. And I know the value if you do it right is something you'll never be able to fully measure. It's not an easy conversation, but it's one that the leadership team at Typeform trusts me to make. I made sure that they had that mindset before I joined. That was important to know the kind of marketer I am. There's going to be things I'm doing that we will not be able to immediately directly measure.